So, yes, I'm live. I find this quite complicated. I'm just pressing buttons and hoping for the best, to be honest. I don't seem to be able to get onto my recreating reality page. No. Okay. Okay, so there are tips I have to respond to, which I don't want to now. Read aloud. Chapter 22. Sitting myself a bit more comfortably. Dog's asleep, which is a good thing. I'm reading out of Lydia, which is the follow-on from a book which I wrote in 2006 to 2017 entitled Bliss After Life. It's the story about Bliss, who passed away. She had a 95th birthday. This is a while ago, and we're following Bliss into the afterlife, and we are also following the story of her family. Her immediate family, which is Holly, her daughter, and Susan, who was also her daughter. She had two daughters, and they are respective mothers of Ben and Tony, who are their sons. So, here is the family who is dealing with the aftermath of the death and now the birth of Lydia, who is a reincarnation of a man called Alexei. Bit involved, isn't it? So, chapter 22. Holly is spinning her yarn. Holly is also a writer and has been writing on a book of science fiction for quite a while. For years, in fact. Holly sat back. She had been writing all morning. An early walk with Frida, so that she knew she did not have to do anything else urgent, which was preventing her from sitting down. She got to make herself a cup of coffee. She got up to make herself a cup of coffee. She tried to limit herself to one large mug a day. Putting the kettle on, she started to wash up and put the stuff from the juicer into the sink. It had stuck by now, as she had sat down straight away to write after she'd made it, and she had not completely immersed it. She caught herself thinking about her whole story and the entities from Atlanos. Ever since she stepped out of bed at 6 a.m., she had waited to pour the developments onto her laptop. She sat down to read what she had accomplished this morning. Here's her story. Prima and Magda had been conversing since the early hours. She got up early to feed Samantha, her 1-year-old little treasure, and had prepared breakfast for Frederick, who turned 7 today. She had seen him disappearing outside, could hear him and his friends playing on the green. Everyone was looking forward to the party later this afternoon. In the last couple of days, Primo had been with her almost all the time. What's up, Primo? I love having you here with us, particularly with Frederick turning 7 today. So excited to have you visit him personally, and not just with stories told by everybody in the community. He knows how the world has changed in the last 22 years since you came into Betty's life and told me you had been in mine from the day I was born. She was drying her hands. It was always fun to have Primo around. His community of 100 had been doing the good work for all this time now, and the world had been transformed in many ways. I mean, just look at us, our beautiful community here, and many similar all around these parts. So many off-grid little groups who have, over the last 10 years, particularly grown in size and influence. Not so much off-grid as our own grid. What is it you're bugging me about, Primo? Because I can feel you're not letting me see the whole picture. She sighed. It was not her own out-breath, and she felt the weight of Primo's resolve. We are such a joyful race, or let's just say species, Magda. We came here to Earth with permission. Whose permission? The Galactic Council. She sat down. This felt big. After many interactions with Primo, she was very in tune with the energy of them. Saying that did not feel right. Felt odd. Primo continued. That's one of the points, Magda. We have already been through a vast history of development before we became bodiless. Your Earth might seem old to you, but we are an ancient race, and Gaia, Earth, New Earth, as we now call it here, had to race ahead in evolution. We were invited, so to speak. It was important to keep it habitable for the human race. Over time, and with some help from darker forces, it had become at risk of underpopulation, a decreasing in number, unnaturally. A plan to deliberately reduce your numbers and, let us say, make the population less varied, a master and servant place, utilizing and pillaging the treasure hidden in and on her, this earth. This has been happening for a long time, but now the matter is dangerous to all. Magda could not stand up, sat rooted to her chair. Something about this sounded so enormous that she felt overwhelmed by all the images Primo was giving her. She had been connected so long with the high energies and joyful vibes that this made her feel a dread she could not remember since she had been very small. Holly was still washing up. Where did all this stuff come from? She was feeling annoyed. The story had been going so wonderfully, and she had enjoyed the stories she poured out about Primo and Secundo, who visited Manu in India, and the development in his family and community. Over the years she had accumulated many individual lives, all visited by the Atlanos and improving life all over the world. Money was soon to become irrelevant, and she had built a paradise in her mind. Now, this morning's development was contrary to her ideas. She heard Chris opening the door, whistling, Frida running to the door, and she dried her hands. Holly, 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 I just saw Tony. We ended up having a coffee. So nice to sit and chat spontaneously. What's up? He took her in his arms. You look spaced out. She wriggled out of his embrace, unable to shake her annoyance, and wanted to be back here and now with Chris. Talk to him, even though she did not have a hope in hell that he'd understand. You think me crazy if I told you why I feel incredibly annoyed. Annoyed? About what? Did I do something? He scratched his head and couldn't think of any misdemeanor. Did Frida get your shoes again? Frida had returned to her cot and was looking at both of them as if to say, what did I do? Holly had to laugh, and suddenly the annoyance disappeared. It's ridiculous, but I couldn't wait to get down and write this morning, and then I hated it when I wrote. Well, that doesn't sound so bad. Chris took Holly in his arms, and she leaned into him. She smiled. I'm still enjoying it, darling. I have not yet even read halfway through it again. He felt a bit guilty as he knew how much she cared for this story. He was enjoying it, but it was all a little bit far-fetched for his liking. He was also not sure if there were not too many people in this story. He liked polished writing. The greats like P.G. Wodehouse, a writer whose books he had shared with Holly's dad, who was also a great admirer of the works of his. Those kind of books were his cup of tea. He liked Trollope, and everybody knew it. This book was a little like a fairy tale. He looked at her, hoping she had not read any of his thoughts. Don't worry, Duck, she was laughing. It had been ages since she had called him that. I make us some lunch. I need a bit of distance from it all, that yarn spinning. And this morning it had the opposite effect to the feeling I usually have when I sit down to create this new world. That sounds just perfect to me. Tony had not wanted to eat anything, so he had also not ordered anything. So Chris had also not ordered anything, and he was starving by now. He did not really feel like listening to too much New World stuff. Sitting with Tony, they had ended up talking about Melanie. Their chatting had been lovely again, but he felt that when the conversation turned to her, yet again, he felt it was time to go. It gnawed at him, but he put it down to an empty belly. Hopefully Holly wouldn't feel like talking too much about her writing. He didn't know if he really wanted to hear about what had perturbed her in her own fantasy world. Chapter 23. Gathering at the refuge. The refuge felt alive with people, Susan thought. She had been finishing clearing the kitchen after everybody had eaten their Sunday roast and piled the dishes in the dishwasher. It had been a varied meal with plenty of vegetables, beef and chicken. They had been 10 at the table, and it had gone very well. Don Ying and Confucius, now she was doing it in her mind, Faye and Ben, Tony and Melanie had arrived the day before, and Holly and Chris this morning. Anna had been invaluable since the visitors arrived from China, and had gone to look in on Lydia, who had for once let them all eat in peace, only starting to murmur now through the monitor. She could hear Anna soothing her quietly. David was only coming tonight. He was busy sorting his new house. She put the kettle on to have a cup of tea on her own. Everybody seemed to have gone into the garden. Susan sat down, and suddenly Melanie appeared at the door. "How are you doing? It's been a busy few days, hasn't it?" "Have a coffee with me, Melanie. I've been wanting to ask you something." "Yes, of course. Don't worry. I make it. The kettle is still hot." She made instant coffee and sat down opposite Susan. She had felt there had been something on Susan's mind, but had not probed, and was now quite glad to hear what was concerning her. "I don't know if you knew, but I am adopted. Holly is not my real sister." She paused and looked at Melanie. "I do not know anything about my parents. Why they abandoned me, why they did not care to have me." She started to cry unexpectedly. Melanie reached to take her hand and held both her hands. She wanted to get this right and hoped the words would come. She felt Mia and let go. "Your mother would have very much cared to have you, dear. She was very young, barely 17, and her parents of Italian descent, strictly Catholic. The pregnancy was obviously an accident. In fact, your mother did not know too much about procreation herself, and when she found out that she was pregnant with you, almost 5 months had passed already. Your father was a Danish exchange student who had been lodging at your parents' house. They felt they were in love, but he had gone home before your mother felt that she was pregnant. She walked past the bench where she left you most days, and had seen Michael regularly having his morning sandwich. She had also seen Bliss. She was naive and scared. She gave birth with the help of a friend. No one ever found out. And as unbelievable as it sounds, she gave birth to a healthy baby at an older friend's house. Her parents were away, and she timed leaving you within minutes of Michael arriving. She was watching, and once she saw you were taken care of, she left. Very sad. Her mother was concerned for her, but they were not very close, and Gina, your mother's name, never confided in her. She never forgot you, Susan. She passed away over 30 years ago, through an accident. You were meant to grow up where you did, my love. Bless you, and be happy for your destiny." Melanie let her hands go and came to herself. She'd got the message still in her memory and was glad to see Susan smile. They both let out a long breath. It had been very emotional, and Susan could almost see herself being placed carefully on the bench by a young dark-haired woman who walked away and hid behind a tree. "I'm so glad." "Phew, thank you so much, Melanie." "Oh, Mio, that was wonderful to hear, and although I felt the pain, it feels good to know that my mother did care for me." "What is this? Are the two of you having a private conversation?" Tony had been looking for Melanie and could feel the atmosphere. Susan wiping her eyes. "What's up? Sorry, shall I go?" "No, don't go, Tony." Susan got up, and Melanie looked at Tony and smiled. "We had some good revelations." "Yes, I found out that my mother was Italian and my father Danish." She suddenly couldn't help for laughing. what was so funny about that? But it tickled her that there were 2 more nationalities in the family no one knew about. Tony wasn't sure if he could join, but when Melanie started to laugh, he couldn't help joining them. Pasta and pastry, Susan spluttered. They laughed, and that made Holly stop on her way to the bathroom. What does that mean? She saw all 3 laughing and joined without knowing what it was all about. Frida was running into the kitchen and barking, somewhat joining the laughter. Oh, sorry, I don't know why this makes me laugh so much. In fact, we had a very emotional time here with Mio telling me about my origins. My mother was Italian and my father Danish. Pasta and pastry. She started giggling again. Gosh, somehow this feels good. I forgot to ask if my father is still alive. She looked expectantly at Melanie, who shook her head. He died 15 years ago, she heard. No, he died in 1997. He had a happy life, completely ignorant of your existence. Melanie smiled and embraced Susan. I hope it put your mind at rest. Yes, thank you very much, and although I shall be thinking about them, I feel it is time to get on with life at hand, which is, as it happens, wonderful. She couldn't wait to tell David. She had confided in him her thoughts about her birth and the new curiosity triggered by little Lydia. She felt a great sense of relief. I am so glad, Susan. I had worried about it a bit, never considering you anything else but my sister. I'm praying that it's not too tragic. Well, it was, I suppose, for your birth mother. Holly, let's put it aside, please. I know it will be that which will accompany me to sleep over the next few nights. I'm honestly glad that I know, though. And pasta and pastry still makes me laugh. So that was the end of chapter 22. And I'm ending this live video now. Have a good Tuesday. And it is the 18th of January 2022.